Hey everybody, Edo here, and for this week's video, I want to talk about 10 great games to bring along while you travel, specifically traveling on planes or trains. It's summer, people going to different places, and I'm thinking of the games that can work essentially when people are side to side with tray tables down. That kind of size. Sometimes maybe they're, on a train you might be facing each other, you might be next to each other. There's a little give here where some games are head to head, but you're playing side by side, which isn't exactly how you'd play if you wanted to play across the table. But these are the games that I often bring and enjoy playing. There's a wide range of games you can play now, smaller and smaller, and you can play in these small spaces. So I do think there are a number, but these stick out to me, and I'm happy to recommend them. I will provide, where I've reviewed these, many of which I have, I will provide video of them. Not video, in the description I'll put a link to the review so you can learn more about it, because this is just sort of 10 games, not in order per se, just 10 great games to bring along. All right? So first one is Jaipur. This is a fantastic, beautiful game where essentially you have, it's a two-player game. We have a flop in front of you that has different types of like gold, silk, different types of merchant goods and camels. And what you're going to be doing is essentially trading from your hand and picking up goods and picking up goods or trading for goods or taking camels and using camels. And it's just got this very robust play as players competing over this flop to create sets and get these victory tokens. That might have not been the quickest to learn, but it is quick to learn. It plays really fast, and the dynamics are great. This is a game you can play again and again and again, and it's a whole lot of fun. Next up, classic Lost Cities. A little bit mathy, but essentially you're going to be going on these expeditions. Again, there are different expeditions typically between the players. You can put it on the side or on top of one of the others. You have to play around, but you're essentially adding a multiplier, making a bet that you can get certain points on each of the different colors, the different routes. And if you come up short, you're going to get a ton of negative points, but if you cross the threshold, you'll start getting positive points. The thing is, there's only 1 through 10 for each route. So you're competing with what cards you have and what your player has, and there's a sort of a middle area, an area where you're dropping cards that your opponent can pick up. Plays really quick. Again, you do this big math equation at the end. It's kinesia. You do kinesia. You do a lot of math at the end, but it's fantastic and well worth it. Next up, this was somewhat recent. This is Air, Land, and Sea. Actually, I saw like a international version with really fantastic, colorful, cartoony art, which I really got a kick out of. But the one that I've seen here in the States is a little bit, it's very war, Air, Land, and Sea. But essentially, you're competing with another player on different fronts of war, and you have a very small hand of cards. I think 5 or just a small number, and you're playing these cards that have to do with taking advantage of each of the fronts and like cards that impact the other fronts. So just a small little, I want to say 3-card Monte, it's not at all, but like this clamshell game where you're like trying to have an advantage on one point of interest or area control through numbers, and then different cards are impacting the other ones and crisscrossing around. Really tight, really well done, tons of fun to play, and it's pretty small. And again, sometimes you either play between you or you just put on top of one player's side or the other. It works, and I find they fit in pretty small places. Next, Strife, another fantastic, tight game. Some similarities to Air, Land, and Sea, but much meatier, where you have essentially equivalent cards. We have identical hands of like, heroes that have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or whatever those number values, representing their value, but each has their ability. What makes Strife really interesting is they have like a first ability and then the next round ability, so you're sort of playing the now and the later ability as you're figuring out what your opponent's going to play. It also has this fate die, which is one of my favorite mechanics, where essentially it's a tiebreaker die, but every time you use it to win a tie, it gets more valuable and you pass it back and forth. You're not rolling it, it's just incrementing up. Super, super cool game. So Another great thing to do, I mean, obviously, for all these games, you have to know who you're going to be going with and what types of games they like. But I think if you're going on a trip, buying a starter deck for Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or any of those CCGs, but the starter decks can be a ton of fun. Oftentimes, now they're on these like sequences and series where every 3 months they have a new one with new rules and things like that. So oftentimes it will feel fresh, and you'll get a deck and you get a deck for the other person, and you'll be able to play together. And usually they're pretty well balanced. You can then switch which ones you're playing with, and I think it's a lot of fun. I don't play CCGs and like Magic the Gathering that much anymore, or Pokemon, but on a trip like this, it's really fun to sort of go back and enjoy it again, and this like sitting and not have to go deep dive into it. You can get more elaborate than that, but I really do think those starter decks are great for this kind of thing, for a little trip. So that is that. So another one I happen to love and can recommend, though this is from Pencil First Games, my company, is Herbaceous Pocket Edition. Herbaceous is a push your luck game where you're pushing your luck on a growing pot in the middle, and you draw a card and you keep it for yourself, or you keep it in your garden as only for you, or you give it to everyone else, and whatever you did the opposite happens to the next card. So you're going around the table or back and forth with another player, and that pot's growing, and you're seeing when you're going to dive in and take it. The Pocket Edition's like this big and is really easy to play. Beautiful cards. Big fan of it, and I happen to like it. But I do think it's good too, and I think it really works well with 2 players. Next, I have Pairs Deluxe. It wasn't by Cheap Ass Games, and suddenly Ernest is why I'm blanking. James Ernest, I think that's right. But this is a deck of cards that, rather than like a poker deck of cards, is you have like 1/1, 2/2s, 3/3s, 4/4s, 5/5, 6/6, 7. So it has a different distribution of cards, and then the deluxe version comes with like 30 different games in it, or however many. A ton of games, different. Some are better than others, but it's a great sort of different deck to play that's easy to get into. A lot of them are sort of pub games, but lots of fun. Once again, not every one of those is going to be great with a lower play count, but certainly a lot of fun. If you're not familiar with it, Hanafuda is fantastic. Hanafuda cards are Koi Koi, which is a game you play with Hanafuda cards. This is a traditional Japanese deck of cards. It's actually the Nintendo before video games printed these cards. They're smaller, they're compact, and Koi Koi is a set collection card. A Hanafuda deck is 48 cards, 12 sets of 4 cards, one for each season, January, February, March, April. And you have a flop, essentially, that you're making sets against, and you're scoring. And there's like a push your luck element where you can sort of say Koi Koi and try and get for another set before the other player does, and you'll get more points or they get double points. It's a lot of fun. It is a fantastic 2-player game. The cards can often be, they're harder cards, not quite dominoes, but they can be a little slippery, so they'll move around a little bit. But it's just a lot of fun. I really like the game. So much so that actually Pencil First Games is working with Vincent Dutrait to make a custom original deck with all new art, which is coming up on Kickstarter. But like you can check that out. But really, Hanafuda is a great game if you haven't seen it before. Next up, and again, a lot of these are I'm not trying to get into the bigger party games. These are games that I really do think play well with lower player counts. To specifically somebody next to you or in front of you. The next one is like Star Realms or Hero Realms. If you're not familiar, it's essentially an engine building game or deck building game where you have basically a middle set of cards again, and what you're doing is you're building up your different armies to buy more stuff and build up your stuff. Build up your cards in front of you, and so it's an engine builder, but then where you're trying to take out and attack the other player. Hero Realms is like a skin, but they've like gone into different directions with all sorts of expansions and new ways of playing. The base box of either is a whole lot of fun, and I easily recommend it for that kind of thing. Also, I think a lot of these games can be games that become more fun the more you play it with the same person. Like they develop your strategy becomes a counter strategy. Now, not all of these, I will admit, are like, there's a lot of these are skilled games. These are games where you can be better than the other person, so that's something to keep in mind, but I think they were all a lot of fun. One more, which there are many of, is the Timeline series. If you're not familiar with the Timeline series, these are basically like little info cards, which have, there's younger ones like with dinosaurs or events. I mean, the ones that are the timeline typically are historic events that happened on a certain date, like American history, French history, medicine, inventions. There's like a huge brand, but essentially you have something that happened, maybe a little info about it, and a date. But you don't see the dates only on one side, and essentially people are playing. You start with a couple cards, but you're playing cards in the hopes of placing the event at the right point in time. Oh, was this invention before or after that other invention? They're great. They play really fast. They're really fun. The dinosaur ones, some of the family-friendly ones are like the weight of the animal, the height of the animal, or size of the animal, and the lifespan. The Animal Kingdom ones. I mean, I don't think, unless you're playing with a zoologist, like, they're great as well. And I've played them with kids and adults. They really hold up. That was 10 bonus deck of cards. I think a standard poker deck goes a long way. There's all sorts of games you can play, a lot of solo games as well. But I think all of these are pretty small, easy to carry, lots of life and fun in them. You can get out of them. And, to different tastes, but this is definitely a group of games I could easily recommend. So anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.
Hey everybody, Edo here, and thanks for watching Gaming with Edo. Reviews over here on this playlist, League and Insider videos over here on this one. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. But most importantly, play some great games. Thanks.